The story of the actual fungi itself, it's amazing. So the American soldiers found that in the Solomon Islands during the World War II. So they just thought that something was like just destroying their clothes, their tents, their weapons and everything. They're like, what's here? You know, this is like enemy of the army. And then they brought it back home and they realized that it's a super powerful fungus.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today's guest is Maija. She is the CEO and co-founder of Onego Bio, building animal-free egg protein, and a serial founder behind several breakthrough food and tech startups. Let's get into it. Hi Maija, welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Well, I would love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Sure.
Lovely. Okay, first question. This is a finish the sentence. A great founder is someone who
is able to imagine the future.
Love it. Question number 2. In one word, what does impact mean to you?
Change.
Nice. Question number 3. What is one question you wish people asked you more often?
Why are you doing this?
Love it. And then do you wanna answer the question?
Yeah, of course. Answering that, because I really want to do my bit. I want to think like why are we here? Why are we living on this planet if just thinking about ourselves? How about if we would kind of like think about like if everyone would think like instead of just thinking about me, my needs, think up like what's the world needing? How could you help?
Definitely. I love that ideology. Okay, question number 4. What problem do you love tackling the most? Like what's your favorite problem?
I in general love problems. So I don't know if there's any problem that I wouldn't like tackling. I would say maybe real problems with some root causes, not something that is nice and surface level, but something that is really going deep.
Love it. Okay. And then question number 5. If your company was an animal, what animal would it be?
It's very hard not to say that we wouldn't be chicken because we are making the egg protein. But I still want to say, because, our scientists really love the protein from sea eagle. So maybe we actually would be instead sea eagle. Because ovalbumin from sea eagle happens to be the best ovalbumin in the world.
Love it. Okay, next question. If you could eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
I think it's a good idea to eat eggs, because egg is such a wonderful protein.
Makes sense. Very on brand. What's the best
My other choice could have been oatmeal, because oatmeal is another one that is super, super, super good. And that was my previous company.
Fair enough. Okay, next question. What's the best way to find a mentor in the tech industry?
Just go out to different places and talk to people and be yourself.
Love it. And then second to last question, what's a small habit that makes a surprisingly big difference in your company?
I think for us, a small habit is singing karaoke, because that makes us feel that we are accepting each other regardless of how good or bad singers we are.
Love it. Lovely. And then last question for the lightning round is, if you had to describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be and why?
Okay, what's the emojis for curiosity? That's the number 1. Maybe with the magnifying glass.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I would also have the muscle, because you're believing yourself, and then with the stars in your eyes, because you discover something that the others didn't.
Love it. That's some good emojis, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, that was really awesome. Thank you for answering my lightning round questions. And let's now move on to your journey, right? So you are a serial entrepreneur, and I really want to understand, was this always the plan? Was this always the plan to start these companies?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the term serial entrepreneur, because it sounds like a serial killer or something like that. But maybe I could more say like, I'm a serial founder. That could be maybe a better way of describing that,
Okay.
because sort of the serial entrepreneur sounds like someone who is like having like different hassles and like all kinds of things cooking here and there. But
Okay.
for me, it's always been more like something that I want to accomplish as like a journey, to do the journey again and again, and you're like a little bit more prepared each time you start
Right.
that, and you have learned so much. You kind of like you're already like in a healthy way, you're getting lazier, meaning that you just don't want to do all these extra twists and turns. You just want to focus. You know what you're doing. You know how to build the great teams. You know how to motivate the teams and so on. But I couldn't say that that was my plan, but now when I'm looking from my early career, I mean, I wish that was a plan, because this is really something that it's sort of the only way for me to live the life.
I love that. It was like kind of not really part of the plan, but you now going back wish that it was, because what would be the kind of reason? Because you could have done more, or like what was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, more like just kind of like believing that that's exactly where you're good at. No, because
Mm.
it's like quite often when you're doing something for the first time, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
like you're doubting yourself, and you think that maybe there's someone who is like much better, and so on and so on.
Right.
And kind of like just looking at the systematically building your own strengths and your own skills and
Mm-hmm.
developing yourself. Because, like, I mean, really honestly, just developing yourself is as important than developing your company, because developing yourself
True.
is the underlying common denominator
Yeah.
to everything.
Yeah. Because if you don't develop yourself, then how are you supposed to develop a company? That makes a lot of sense. Exactly. And like we're talking a lot about companies, because obviously you're quite experienced in this in this industry.
Mm.
Starting a company is kind of is a pretty crazy thing to do. So I want to kind of understand your motivation for your first company. So the first company that you started, what was the reasoning behind it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it always sounds like so kind of like glorious that these brave founders now went on and founded it. At the same time, I mean, I have never been a person who would just kind of like believe that, oh, I just go somewhere and then someone is giving me an amazing job and so on. I was kind of
Right.
like just looking around, and because I'm a designer and I'm not kind of like a product designer. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course I can do that as well, but I'm not like this cat person, who's just doing these amazing like curves and like I'm making these molds and so on, or a graphic
Right.
designer who is like designing your posters. I can do that, but I mean, it's definitely not like where I'm at my best. So having this
Mm-hmm.
sort of kind of like a visionary designer is very difficult. It's just like, okay, where could I use these skills? So it was very natural for me just to kind of create my own job. And quite fast I kind of went to this like, okay, you can sort of like use these design principles with designing companies. That was just like a very natural way when just looking at, okay, what the other people are doing, what would I want to do. So there was actually like, for me it was like
Mm-hmm.
sort of kind of like less glorious in that sense.
Okay, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And would you say that having done your first company and now you have your second and your third company, what would you say kind of made you want to repeat this process? Was it just the fact that you'd found your kind of passion and what you like and what you're good at, or was there something like else?
Well, I mean, it's really like being an entrepreneur, being a founder is a
Mm,
way of being, it's a way of living. It's
right.
very, very difficult to give up once you're in there.
Mm,
So just saying that, like I'm just like my own well being is just so much better when I'm in a company. So
mm-hmm.
somehow it would be very difficult for me to start looking at life like just helping others a little bit here and a little bit there, just to kind of like be someone's mentor and someone's investor and someone in the board and so on and so on. So kind of
Right.
like I just need this one thing that I can really put all my passion into.
Ah,
Well, I mean, maybe it's also like, maybe these emojis were also like expressing a little bit of this passion. So that
mm-hmm.
clearly has been something that has been very, very strong, like all the way through. So if you kind of like don't have a home for your passion, you're just going to be unhappy. So having a good
Yeah,
home for the passion,
true.
it just makes life worth living.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good point actually, because I would definitely say that being a founder is a way of life, and it's not for everyone, obviously, but
Yeah,
it's definitely a kind of way of living, and I feel like it's a very rewarding way of living because especially if you're like solving a massive problem in the world. It's amazing because you get to like meet such interesting people as
exactly,
well.
exactly. And I mean, you kind of like get to see things that is like, it's like all these like problem solving
Mm,
and, just going through the obstacles and trying to understand the
yeah.
root causes and a lot of creativity. So many
Mm-hmm.
people could just think like, oh no, it's just kind of like following, like you have these models, whatever, that, okay, do it this way and now study your
Mm-hmm.
market this way and so on. But it never goes the way it's described in the books.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
always need to navigate. So it's kind of like a little bit like it could be. It's kind of like a journey, like it's like
Yeah.
sailing that you would just go like you start somewhere. You're expecting that you're trying to get somewhere, but
Yeah.
you don't know exactly how you're gonna meet that goal.
Yeah.
Or what's the actual route there? What would you meet on your way, and so on and so on. So a lot
Yeah,
of creativity is
exactly.
needed.
Exactly. Definitely. Okay, well, I would really like to switch subjects a little bit, but still on the company path. So let's
Mhm.
talk about your current company, Onego Bio, which is your third company. And let's give a kind of summary first off, right? So for anyone who doesn't know, what is the kind of food tech industry and what does
Yeah, so we make this egg protein with precision fermentation. So
Mhm.
that's an old technology that is out there like since 1990s, 1980s already.
Yeah.
And it means that you're actually able to make the real animal proteins, not the substitute, the real
Mhm.
deal, just without the animals. So we are brewing. It's kind of like brewing that you have a microorganism, you're feeding
Mhm.
that with like a glucose, nutrients, and so on, and it starts like sweating out the protein. And then it's the real protein that it's as functional or even more functional than the one that actually comes from the animals. And that means that then you can use that in all kinds of like a food industry
Mhm.
applications, just like the animal based eggs. And it has like more than 90% lower environmental footprint, which is coming back to this
Yeah.
impact question.
Very, very cool. Yeah, no, because I got the great honor to get a tour of your office and your lab. It's a very, very interesting idea and kind of problem that you're solving. And I
Yeah.
really want to understand like how did you fall in love with this problem? Because as we said, there are so many there are so many problems to solve in this world. So what was it about this one?
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I was very privileged to be invited to this. So this is a
Mm,
spin-off company. So and that means so much. Like in
yeah.
this kind of research, the basic research just takes years and years. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
usually not even so that okay, the more focus you put in there, the faster you go, the better it will be. But it's
Mhm.
more also kind of it's building by itself, like behind the scenes when people are just gathering more knowledge and the more
Yeah.
information and more understanding is put in there. So this is something that they did a long, long time at this research institute VTT.
Mhm.
So when the time was ripe, then the CEO of VTT came to a conclusion that okay, it's maybe this is such a valuable thing that is more than just contract research. That is their usual
Yeah.
business. That okay, how about if we would actually make a spin-off from this? But yeah, they were talking about that to me, and it didn't take me long. I mean, just like a day or two, I was like, come on, this just makes so much sense. That is the world's most used protein and it's broken.
Mhm.
When something like that is
Yeah.
broken and the buyers are really eagerly trying to find solutions, I mean,
Mhm.
broken means that first, like it's very very thin, cushion on the supply side. So basically, just a couple of days buffer in the supply. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing, and the other thing is that this avian flu is just a horrible thing. It's been there like
Yeah.
for forever. That like every couple of years it comes back, and suddenly prices go like 5 times or ten
Yeah.
times higher,
Yeah.
and they need
Crazy.
to live with that. So it's such a fundamental ingredient that okay, deserves to be solved. That's my motivation for the
Mhm.
topic.
Definitely. And I can see that you're very very passionate about it because it is an interesting because then you don't even take into account the whole kind of the waste production with eggs and all of that sort of
Yeah,
stuff. It's a very interesting industry and then it's obviously especially in the US it's a very much fluctuating as well
exactly,
because of all of those different problems and things. And it is a really cool problem to be solving. And
exactly.
now Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. I want to understand, like, can we go a little bit more into detail
Mhm.
about the overall process? Because we know that it's a kind of is it like, was it bacteria? It's a bacteria, right?
It's a fungus, actually. I mean,
Fungus,
this,
that was it.
and this is
Yes.
another topic that I encourage everyone to look deeper. This whole like a
Mm-hmm.
meaning of like what fungus can do, what fungal systems can do
Yeah.
in this world. So the power of fungi is just enormous. But this is a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fungal fermentation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I wanna understand like the full length of the process. So we start with the fungi. What
Yeah.
is the next step? Where are we getting to a consumer? What's the end?
Yeah, if I can just spend like 1 minute for this, the story of the actual fungi itself, it's amazing. So the American
Mm,
soldiers found that in the Solomon Islands during the World War II. So they just thought that something was like just destroying their clothes, their tents, their weapons, and everything. They're like, What's here? This is like enemy of the army." And then they brought
right.
it back home, and they realized that it's a super powerful fungus. So
Mm-hmm.
it has this capability of like eating cellulose, and basically like that is the phenomenon that we're also utilizing in here. So that's actually the same strain still. Everything is from Solomon Islands during the Second World War
Crazy.
II. So yeah. And then how it happened was that just generations after generations, it was developed further to be capable of doing this. So it's not like just any fungus, but it's a very, very, very trained special type of fungus. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you feed it, it kind of like grows itself. But then when you stop feeding it, this is like when you're utilizing the nature to work for you. So
Right.
in nature, what the fungus would do is that, okay, I need more food. So I'm there with like some dead wood on the ground. So it will
Mm-hmm.
start spitting certain enzymes so that it can break the cellulose to get more sugar for itself to grow. So that's like the phenomenon. And what we're doing is that when we have given it enough sugar, so it's growing first happily, and then we stop feeding it, it starts like sweating out the enzymes, but it's not anymore the enzymes. It's now
Mm,
our protein. So we're sort of kind of like fooling it to give the protein that we want. And then when we
right.
stop the fermentation, we just collect away the fungus. Thank you, fungus. You did your job. And then after that, it's like the protein that has the water, the water that has the protein in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
Yeah. And then
it's
you dry that, and then you make
right.
it into a dry powder.
Right. Exactly. No, it is really, really cool process. The fact that it's like from like a fungus from World War II, it's a very old fungus.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, this is also another thing that is super cool, I think, is that this is something that, this kind of process has been there like for a long, long time,
Mm,
making all kinds of enzymes and colors and flavors and
yeah.
whatnot. But then just thinking about that, you can actually make the main proteins with the same system. That's sort of like the biggest finding
Pretty
here at
crazy. Yeah.
Onego.
Yeah, I mean it definitely makes you wonder like what else is there? What else can it do, or what else can other fungus do? It definitely makes you wonder about it.
This fungi can do almost anything. So I mean, this is
Crazy.
another layer of the excitement that you can actually just do so much with that. And this is like,
Awesome.
like if you just think about like a pharma and chemicals and materials and
Mm.
food and so on. So it has endless possibilities.
Awesome. Very cool. I don't know if you're allowed to say anything because you did say this at the party that we were at.
Yeah.
But what are the kind of next steps for Onego at the
Yeah.
moment?
Well, I mean, I can absolutely talk about that. So we now just got this US regulatory approval. So the
Mm-hmm.
FDA has given us green light to commercialize this in the US.
Awesome.
And we will go to US first because it's the fastest market where
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
get the regulatory approval.
exactly.
And it's also the world's biggest food market. So it sort of goes like hand in
Mm-hmm.
hand in there. So we are not just manufacturing first with the contract manufacturing, and then just opening the market, like having customers to try the products in real applications, not just like
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing these pilots and trials and so on, but actually launching real products, and then ramping up the manufacturing so that we can actually start building our own factory. So believe it or not, I mean, building this factory is my absolute biggest motivation for the whole thing,
Yeah.
because then
Very
it's
exciting.
gonna be 6 million hens egg farm. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
big egg farm in a super compact like space, and
Yeah.
then has these amazing capabilities. So
Yeah.
that's really like the lighthouse.
Egg farm, but not egg farm, which is
Exactly.
which is
The
great.
next generation egg farm.
Yeah, very cool. Very exciting to see the kind of process It's really cool that you're building your own factory, which is awesome, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Let's move topics, because I feel like we could talk about this for quite a while. But let's change into societal shifts, or in this case, long-term societal shifts, right? So my question for you is kind of, how do you measure your success in Onego when the results of this kind of work and this kind of industry are quite invisible for the next couple of years, more or less? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. The nice thing about this Onego case is that sort of like it's a quite simple one. It's really like a train that is moving on the tracks. And we always feel that, it's kind of like we just need to make sure that it can actually move on the tracks. That is, that we are not somehow like bothering it or somehow like pushing it out from the tracks, because it's
Right.
really going there, and like having this real impact. It's really coming just to have just to succeed in getting the product to market and having enough customers to use that. And it's kind of like the simplicity in here is what really makes most sense, because at the same time, I mean, for example, having these like a powdered eggs instead of the liquid eggs or the shelled eggs, and so that's actually preferred by the food industry anyways. So
Yeah.
that's another trend that is like
It's
happening
easier.
regardless of
Yeah.
Onego. Because of course, I mean, just if you think about that, like, do you want to transport water? Do you want to freeze the water, defrost the water, be worried about the contamination of the water, like mix the water and solids? Okay, meaning that the food industry does not like
Yeah.
to use water in the ingredients. So they would just make the powdered mixes and just use the powdered ingredients. That's just so much simpler. So that's anyways happening. And that kind of like we feel that, that just creates another opportunity for Onego to just plug in something that nobody almost even sees. That like you can actually have this very, very, it's very nice that you say this invisible change, because that's sort of like our target. That is, it doesn't need to be shouting there that these buns were now created by using this special ingredient. No, it's just quietly going there and just making the food industry healthier and more robust without absolutely anything changing.
Yeah, it's good because, as we know, most people do not like change. So it's a lot easier to kind of go under the radar and slowly kind of shift things. It works a lot better, I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, really, we tried, like, for example, we made this consumer study. We had 1,000 people answering the survey. Like, we made a cookie box that just had this ingredient list, like, slightly modified. So that it had this ingredient, non-animal egg protein. And guess how many of the 1,000 actually spot? Guess how many? Guess how many noticed?
Probably like maybe 10 or something like that.
One person. One person noticed
One.
that there was a change.
One person. Wow, that's
And
crazy.
then when we got it, could you look at the ingredient list? This is something about like da da da, and then maybe 15 recognized after that. So just saying that, like this change that is happening without us even recognizing, I think that that's the most powerful change.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I got to try one of the cookies that was made with the Onego powder, and yeah, it tasted way better than a normal cookie, which is what you want. You want it to be better than the original, because then it
Exactly.
becomes the new original, which is awesome. Okay, yeah,
But there is
very
actually a
good.
good reason for why it's sometimes even better, because this is a slightly more potent than the animal based, because there's like all kinds of things in the eggs. Only Mother Nature knows why they're there. But in here, it's only the functional part. So when you just have
Nice.
that, it means that it actually can make like
Just a
even
lot more
fluffier
of a kind
cookies
of
and nice and moister
okay.
and so on. Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. But that's good though. It works in your favor really
Yeah.
well.
Oh yeah,
So
it
that's
does.
really, really cool. Okay, well, we've now entered the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. So I want to know where you're zagging and everyone else is zigging. Now, you said in your prep questions that you are on a plant-based diet, right? Which is very kind of fitting, shall we say. So the question is the reason why you're on a plant-based diet is because you have your company, or is there another reason?
The reason is that I have never even tasted meat. So I'm like a totally native vegetarian.
Wow.
So this is something that, like, and when I was a kid, the world was very different. There was meat on every dish, and every
Mm.
meal was a meat containing milk. So that was a weirdo thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I was 11, I got the doctor's certificate that said, like, the kid seems to be normal even if she doesn't like want to eat meat. So you shouldn't be forcing her to eat meat. And this is what my mom wanted the doctor to write so that I could just bring that to school and say, like, okay, I don't have to eat meat. I
Uh,
just sort of kind of like that was not my parents' decision. It was 100% my own. But it,
mm-hmm.
it came, when I was maybe something like 3 or 4 years old. I just
Wow.
didn't want to eat meat. So that's sort of nice, to see that it was like very, very poor when I was a kid. It's like usually it
Mm.
was just the meat containing this, where the meat is just taken out. So it was
Mm.
just the side. And then basically when I now realized that, hey, there's a bunch of other people who are following the same thing, that
Mm.
is very, very nice. And I kind of feel
Yeah.
that at least I have tried a little bit to make the world to look a bit more like
Mm.
how I was zagging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I think that's great, and it kind of shows the entrepreneurial spirit. It's just like I don't really care what other people think. I just do what I I just do what I
Yeah.
want to do, which is very,
Yep.
very cool.
But
Very,
to be
very
really
cool.
honest, I mean, I had my times when I was kind of like, sort of like, what was it? Not like hiding it, but somehow I didn't feel that it's anything I wanted to talk about. So I was
Mm.
just kind of like never mentioning anyone. And kind of like, if there's like meat, I just kind of like made sure that like I'm never requesting anything. So kind of like I just didn't want that to sound like I'm like a freak. So it was actually a big deal for me to found this, like, my previous company, the plant-based meat company. That is like first time ever, just coming out of the closet, like, I'm a vegetarian, like, and I think it's cool. So
Yeah.
that was sort of like something that was like a big moment for me when
Yeah.
I decided, okay, yes, it is actually my thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's very kind of full circle as well.
Yeah.
Totally, 100%. I love that. That's awesome. Now move into story time, my favorite part. I want to know about you being a professional classical musician by training and then becoming a CEO. Like what was the transition here? Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. In When I was at school, for example, at high school, I had these two strong sides that were like equally strong. That like
Mhm.
I really, really like the arts, and like art and music and everything. So I
Yep.
was I was very good in like both like a painting and drawing, and then also music and everything. And
Mhm.
then at the same time, I was also very interested in this more systematic and analytical, like maths and biology and so on.
Right.
And then I really didn't have like that many role models. So I kind of felt that it's the safest way to just follow someone who kind of like sees you, who kind of like
Mm.
recognizes you. So that was my music teacher, who was like, hey, absolutely, like, you have all the possibilities, and let's just go for that. And
Mhm.
then that was sort of kind of like like very, very sort of intuitive way of going, like, okay, let's do this first and then think after that. But
Awesome.
I, of course, I mean, I all the time I sort of knew that, like, just being a classical musician, just sitting there in the orchestra and just playing among the others, that's not gonna be like forever for me, because it's
Mm.
sort of like the creativity in there is very, very different. It's more like this
Right.
interpretation creativity. So, and of course the flow, this creative flow, that's super nice. But I was when I was studying the music, I was already studying the industrial design at the same time. So I sort of kind of like
Okay.
felt that, okay, let's see how these things
Try
go.
out
And
different things. Yeah.
yeah, and also like a little bit that, just combine that, when I was studying at the
Mhm.
design school, then I was working at the theater, like in the evenings, and just playing there, just combining the things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've always been like sort of like willing to combine, that it's not just one.
Mm.
But then like from this design, came this, I started this international design business management. So the design
Mhm.
business management was sort of like my entry and my gate to the business side. So
Mhm.
very much like, well, I have to admit that, maybe I've always been like, if someone would have just told me that, okay, just go and study business, I would have been like, no, 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 no. That's the last thing for me because I'm a creative person. Like those are the values that I really like need to keep on my palette. So I kind of like would not have seen that. Of course, business can be very creative. So I kind of like always saw that there needs to be the creative angle in everything what I'm doing. And then just kind of like started my first company. That was a very very different one. So that was in electronics. So it was about this wireless power. And then only after that, like only after exiting that, I sort of kind of like had this aha moment with the food and with the vegetarian lifestyle and something that it's actually in me. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And then that very, very nicely leads into this biotech because food and bio are quite close. But still, I mean, of course, if we would just look at like one point of time being a musician and then another point of time being like a biotech CEO, you could say like, how is that possible? But still, I think it's all about life opening you new doors and you just
Definitely.
saying yes. And this is another thing that I just always like to think that people are so often recommending that just say no and like be very strict and don't agree to anything and just say learn to say no and things like that. But I always think that it's actually good to also learn to say yes. That when something is offered for you, that usually means something. It usually kind of like there is something awaiting, maybe universe has planned something for you and you just can't see that yet.
Yeah, definitely. I would totally agree, and I think your journey is it's a very kind of random way through, but definitely it's like opened a lot of doors that you wouldn't think that you would be, I don't know, like a few years ago or whatever it is, so it's
Yeah.
very cool, very very cool story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Yeah.
And we're now sadly coming to the end of the podcast. So I do have three final questions for you. So the first one is, imagine it's 2035. What does your kind of life look like? And then what does Onego look like?
Okay, so it's going to be 10 years from this.
Yes.
Okay, I sincerely hope that Onego has built several factories because
Mm-hmm.
this is what we are planning. I mean, it's like multiplying that is the
Yep.
absolute must. So we actually would have reached a state that actually creates an impact that really there it's like a valid ingredient and it
Awesome.
needs to be part of the food system. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course I would so much hope that I would still be the CEO because that's really
Mm-hmm.
my dream that I could be the CEO for that kind of a company.
Yep.
But of course, there's also another possibility that I would not be the CEO. And then in that case, I sort of think that maybe it already could be now the time for me to be kind of like helping others and just, like enabling others to accomplish their dreams and just take the steps forward. So either of those, I doubt that I would be part of like some totally new startup, but that's of course still a possibility as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Good things to wish for, I think. And
Yeah.
then second question, how can listeners follow along with your journey? So where can they find you?
Where can they find me? Well, they can follow me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's, I always just encourage people also to just when you meet someone, this is maybe like a little bit the question that how can you find your mentor? Like, just go and ask. I mean, just ask someone to have like have a cup of coffee or lunch with you. So it's
Yeah.
not so that like there are always so important people that they wouldn't have time for that. It's also that they're also humans. That if you have something interesting to talk about, like I really also want to get inspired. So if someone wants to talk to me, I'm very happy for that.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Okay, and then last question, how can listeners be useful to you? So what can they do to help you?
Okay. Well, I mean, my sort of biggest dream is to show that you don't have to be like from only like some cool MIT lab or something in order to create something meaningful.
Yeah.
To kind of like really believe in themselves and show that all kinds of enterprises can be born around the world, anywhere where you are. When you have the skills, when you have the courage, when you have the burning desire to get something done,
Mm-hmm.
possible regardless of where you're from. So just following that, I think that's absolutely the biggest reward also for me as an entrepreneur.
Love it. Okay, well, that was really awesome. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following along with obviously your journey and Onego's journey as well. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favorite podcasting app. Do consider leaving us a review as it helps the podcast tremendously.